एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू आवर यूट्यूब चैनल। और आज का जो टॉपिक है वो हम डिस्कस करें वो है जुडिशियल एक्टिविज्म। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट। प्रीलिम्स रिविजन कार्निवल UPSC CSE 2020 has already started, and we are taking special classes festival also that has already started from 5th September 2020. And along with that, in the special classes festivals, we are providing you with 400 plus free live classes under Unacademy. So, Unacademy UPSC Championship 2.0 has already started, and all India free mock test series will be provided by Unacademy. And UPSC CSE Prelims 2020-2021 Paper 1 JS. You will also get a chance to meet UPSC CSE 2019 toppers, top Unacademy educators, and a subscription scholarship also. And it will be held on 30th August, 6th September, 13th September, 20th September, and 27th September. So you can enroll now if you're really interested in this. As we know that next month we have our exams, so if you want to brush up your skills or you want to clear some of your concepts, then you can complete your preparation with UPSC CSE 2020 with Unacademy. So this one subscription has unlimited benefits, like you can learn from your comfort zone, you have unlimited access to all resources, all courses, then you have top educators, you have full syllabus coverage, double down clearing session, live test series, study material in PDF format, and answer writing session along under our mentors and guidance. So this is also one-stop solution for a complete UPSC CSE preparation, because as we know that we have structured batches with top educators, batches in Hindi, English, bilingual, late night as well as 2-year batches, then 100% syllabus coverage, vast range of optional prelims, main test series, and we have the doubt clearing sessions also. Along with that, we have free daily current affair practice, essay and English writing practice, and we will also provide you with the performance analysis so that you can know about your highs and lows and you can improve your lows or your weak points. And along with our study, what is really essential is that how do we prepare for our interview. So we need to be fully prepared for our interview, and all these guidelines will be given under this package only. And UPSC complete batch preparation courses have already started from 7th September 2020 already. And if you want to enroll for any of the batches, you can click on any one batch. Like we have bilingual batch, in which the medium of instruction will be Hindi, English both. We have Hindi, the medium of instruction will be Hindi, and material will be provided in complete Hindi. Then we have English. Those who are comfortable in English language can enroll in complete English JS batch code. So this course is only for you, so you can enroll in any three of them, in any of the three courses easily, in whichever you are comfortable. Now if you subscribe now, you will get 10% off. You just need to apply this code and get the subscription over here, as we can see in the app UPSC CSE, and then you can click over get subscription, apply this code, and you can proceed for the payment over here. So you were also providing you with the daily current affairs series that is completely free in this test series, and it will be given on 7:30 daily, 20 question 20 minutes, and it will be for 40 marks. And along with that, we are providing you with the test analysis also. So if you really like our channel, you can join on YouTube, Unacademy, Articulate, Telegram, or Facebook. The link are given in the bio. So let's proceed with the chapter. So as we know, the judicial activism basically originated and developed in the USA, and the term was first coined in 1947 by Arthur. He was an American historian as well as educator also. And in India, the term, the doctrine of judicial activism was basically introduced in the mid-1970s under Justice Krishna Iyer, Justice P.N. Bhagwati, Justice Reddy, and Justice Desai, that actually laid the foundation of judicial activism in our country. So now let's talk about the meaning of judicial activism. So as we know, the judicial activism played a very important role by the judiciary in the protection of the rights of the citizen and in the promotion of justice in the society. So basically it means that it implies that the judiciary plays an important role, that it asserts its role and to force the other two organ, we're talking about the legislature and executive, to discharge their constitutional duty or to perform their duties. So the judiciary comes in between so that they can perform their duties properly. And the judicial activism is also known as judicial dynamism, and antithesis of judicial restraint, which means to self control that has been exercised by the judiciary. So we can basically take this term and explain, can be explained in two ways. The first, that it is basically exercising the judicial power that motivates the judges to depart from normally practiced strict adherence to judicial proceeding in favor of progressive and new social law policies. It commonly is marked by the decision of calling for the social engineering, and occasionally it takes decisions that represent the intrusion in the legislature and executive matters. So it is a practice in the judiciary of protecting or expanding the individual right to decision that depart from the established precedent or independent or in the opposition to suppose to constitutional or legislative intent. So the concept of judicial activism is basically closely related with PIL, that is public interest litigation, and it is the judicial activism of the Supreme Court plays a very important factor that in the rise of the PIL. Basically, PIL is an outcome of judicial activism, and it is a very popular form of manifestation of judicial activism. So now let's talk about the justification of judicial activism. So according to Dr. B.L. Vadera, he said that there is a near collapse of the responsible government when the legislature and executive basically fail to discharge their respective function. So it clearly says that when the responsible government, like the government, fails to perform its duties, or basically they collapse, then the judiciary comes in between, and this basically when they fail to uphold the basically when they fail to uphold the beliefs and ideas of the people, or unable to perform their duties or function, then basically this leads to the erosion of the confidence of the constitution and the democracy amongst all the citizens in our country. And the citizen basically look up to judiciary for the protection of their rights and freedom, as well as this also gives them a tremendous pressure on judiciary to step in aid for the all the suffering masses also. So along with that, we can see that judicial activism, that is the judges like to participate in the social reforms that take place in the changes times, and it encourages the PIL and liberalizes the principle of local standing also. Now there's a legislative vacuum that has been there for the certain areas which have not been legislated upon. It is therefore upon the court to indulge in judicial legislation or to meet the changing social needs. Now the constitution has clearly adopted certain provision that basically gives the judiciary certain scope to legislate so that they can play an active role in the judicial activism. So even Subhash Kashyap observes that there are certain eventualities that may be conceived when the judiciary may have to overstep into normal jurisdiction and intervene in certain area otherwise falling within the domain of legislature and executive. इसका मतलब ये है कि कभी कभी जो judiciary है उसको जो अपनी normal जो उनकी functioning है उसके अलावा उनको एक स्टेप अहेड आकर उन्हें जो डोमेन होता है जो लेजिस्लेचर और एग्जीक्यूटिव काम है वहाँ पे जाके उनको इंटरफेयर करना होता है और उन्हें बताना होता है कि आपको क्या करना और कैसे करना होता है, जो बेसिकली हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बहुत क्या कहते हैं बहुत इजीली मेंशन है, ताकि वो बहुत इजीली वो वहाँ पे उन्हें पता है कि उनकी जॉब और ड्यूटी उनको क्या परफॉर्म करनी है। उसके बाद जब एक लेजिस्लेचर फेल हो जाता है अपनी ड्यूटीज को डिस्चार्ज करने से, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज और ड्यूटीज को परफॉर्म करने के लिए, तो इन केस ऑफ हंग लेजिस्लेचर व्हेन बेसिकली अ गवर्नमेंट provides is weak, insecure and busy in only survival and therefore unable to take any decision which displeases any caste, community or other group. सो बेसिकली हम क्या बात कर रहे हैं, हम लेजिस्लेचर की बात कर रहे हैं इसमें, जिसमें क्या होता है कि वीक और जो गवर्नमेंट होती है वो अपने आप को बेसिकली काफ़ी वीक, इनसिक्योर और बिजी कर देती है स्ट्रगल में कि उनका सर्वाइवल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। इस वजह से वो कोई डिसीजन मेकिंग जो होती है वो नहीं कर पाती है। तो इस वजह से जो कास्ट और वेरियस कम्युनिटी है, जो बाकी ग्रुप है, वो डिस्प्लीज हो जाती है कि हमारे यहाँ कोई डिसीजन नहीं लिया गया है। उसके बाद दोज इन पावर मे बी अफ्रेड ऑफ टेकिंग ऑनेस्ट और हार्ड डिसीजन फॉर द फियर ऑफ लूजिंग पावर। काफ़ी लोग ये होते हैं कि अपनी पावर ना खोने के चक्कर में वो ये देखते कि वो ऑनेस्ट और हार्ड डिसीजंस ले ही नहीं पाते हैं, क्योंकि उन्हें उनका क्या लगता है कि वो पावर से हट जाएंगे अगर वो काफ़ी बोल्ड डिसीजंस लेंगे। अब इस वजह से जो पब्लिक इश्यूज है वो ज़्यादातर रेफर करते हैं कोर्ट को, जो इश्यूज करता है लॉ, ताकि वो टाइम टू टाइम इनके डिसीजन आ सके, और डिले डिसीजन में या फिर एक पास कर देता है ऑन द ओडियम फॉर द स्ट्रॉन्ग डिसीजन मेकिंग टू द कोर्ट्स. So where the legislature and executive basically fail to protect the basic rights of citizens, like the right to decent life, healthy surroundings, to provide a honest, efficient and just the system of laws and administration, where the court law is misused by a strong authoritarian parliamentary party or government for their own motives. Like we take example of emergency when Indira Gandhi used Supreme Court or used her powers to basically fulfill her own motives. Now, sometimes the courts can themselves, knowingly or unknowingly, can also become the victims of movement like the to all women, that the weakness of the phrase for the populism, publicity, playing to the media, hogging on the different headlines. Now, according to Dr. Vandana, the concept of judicial activism can also be reflected in the various trends of the society. For example, the expansion of the rights of hearing of the administrative process, the excessive delegation without any limitation. There is expansion of judicial control over discretionary powers, expansion of judicial review over administration, promotion of open government, indiscriminate exercise of contempt power, then exercise of jurisdiction when none exists, then overextending the standard of rules for interpretation in the search to achieve economic, social, and educational objectives, then passing of orders which are as per se unworkable. Now let's come to the activities of judicial activism. According to Upendra Bakshi, an eminent jurist has basically delineated a following typology of human or social rights activists who activated basically the judicial activism in various forms. The first, we can talk about the civil rights activists who basically demand for the civil and political rights of the people, and they raise issues against all these things, and basically these group focus on the civil and political issues of the people. Then we have people rights activists. They focus on the social and economic rights within the context of the state repression of the people's movement. Then we have consumer rights group, which basically raises the issue on the problems that are faced by the consumer and the issues of consumer right, within which framework the accountability of the polity or economy. Then we can talk about the bonded labor groups. They These group ask for judicial activism is nothing sort of annihilation of the wage slavery in India. Then we can talk about the citizens for environmental concerns. From the word environment, we can clearly understand or comprehend that it talks about basically these group activate an activist judiciary to basically combat the increasing environmental degradation or population. Then we can talk about the citizen groups against a large irrigation project, that the activist formations basically as the Indian judiciary, the impossible for any judiciary in the world, namely to seize or desist from ordering against some irrigation projects for the various parts. Then we have the rights of child groups. These groups basically focus on the child labor, the right to literacy, juveniles and custodial institutions, and the rights of children born to the sex worker. Now let's talk about the custodial rights group. Basically, this group include the social action by the prisoners rights group, of women under the state of protective custody and the person under preventive detention. Then we have the poverty rights group. Basically, this group litigates the issues concerning to the drought, famine relief, or any urban impoverished. Then the indigenous people rights group. These groups basically agitate for the issue of the forest dwellers, citizens of the fifth and sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution, and the identity rights. Then we have women's right group. Basically, they talk about or they focus on the issues of gender equality, the gender-based violence, harassment, rape, dowry, murders that are taking place against women. Then we have bar-based group. These association agitate the issues concerning to the autonomy, accountability of the Indian judiciary. Then we have the media autonomy groups. Basically, these groups focus on the autonomy and accountability of the press, instrument of mass media that has been owned by the state. The assorted lawyer-based group. This include the critically influential lawyers group which agitate for the various causes of the people. Then we associated assorted individual petitioners. Basically, they include the freelance activist individual who actually file the PIL on the behalf of some other. Then let's talk about the what are the apprehensions of the judicial activism. So the same jurist Upendra Bakshi also presented a typology of fear which has been generated by the judicial activism, and he basically observed that the fact entail invocation of various range of fears, and this invocation is designed to bring a nervous rationality among India's most conscientious justice. He basically observes some of the following types of fear. The first is the ideological fear. The ideological fear is basically about the powers of the legislative or executive or the autonomous institutions in the civil society. Then we have the epistemic fear, which actually talks about do they have enough knowledge in the matters, economic matters of Manmohan Singh, or the scientific or the scientific of the atomic energy established, the captains of scientific or industrial research, or so on that goes on. The management fear that are they doing justice by adding some of the litigation workload to a situation of staggering growth of errors. Then we have the legitimation fears that are not there causing a depletion of their symbolic and instrumental authority by passing orders in the public interest or litigation which the executive may bypass or ignore. Then the democratic fear that is there, that what is this basically the profusion of the public interest litigation nurturing the democracy or depleting its potential for the future. The biographic fears that what could be my place in the international sphere or affairs. Now let's talk about what is judicial activism and what is judicial restraint. So the meaning of judicial restraint is basically that judicial activism or judicial restraint are basically to alternate judicial philosophy, and that has been taking place in United States, and those who subscribe to the judicial restraint content that the role of judges should be very limited and not and they should not interfere in the lawmaking of the executive or the legislature, and the job should be basically confined to what the law is, and they should leave the business of lawmaking which is where it basically probably belongs, mean that where it probably belongs, that is with the legislature and executive. Then we can talk of, under the no circumstance, moreover the judges should allow their the judges allow their personal or political values or the policy agendas to color their judicial opinion. This view holds that the original intent of the authors of the constitution, and it amends us knowingly that it must it must guide the courts. Now let's talk about the assumption of basically judicial restraint. Now the court is basically undemocratic, as we all know, that because it is the non-elective and then it is non-elective and non-responsive to the popular will, and it is also a form of an oligarchic composition of the court that should therefore wherever possible to make more democratic branches of the government. Then this they questionable origins of the great power of judicial activism is basically a power not specifically granted by the constitution. The doctrine of separation of the powers, then the concept of federalism by dividing powers between the nation and the state, basically requires the court for deference towards the action of the governments and the official. The non-ideological the non ideological but the pragmatic assumption that since the court is dependent on the Congress for its jurisdiction on the resources and dependent on the public acceptance for its effectiveness, it ought not to overstep its boundaries without the consideration of the risk involved. Then the aristocratic notion that of being the court of law or the inheritor of the custodian of the Anglo-American legal tradition that has been taken place. It ought not to go far beyond the level of the politics or the law that has to be that the law that has been that is being the process of reason judgment or the politics that being concerned only with the power and influence. And from above it is very clear that all the assumption, actually the seven that is dealing with the judicial review, holds a very good holds good in the Indian context too, of the US also. Now let's talk about what are the Supreme Court observation. Basically, we are repeatedly coming across cases where judges are unjustifiable trying to perform executive or legislative function, and this is basically clearly unconstitutional because in the name of judicial activism the judge cannot cross the limit, or basically they cannot try to take over the function which basically belongs to the legislative and executive, and which belong to the other organ of the state. Now the judges second is that the judges must know their limits and must not try to run the government because they must have modesty and humility and not to behave like the emperors. And the book of the spirit of the laws by Montesquieu talks about the various consequences of not maintaining the separation of power among the three organs. The bench also said that the French political philosopher, by warning that is basically the particularly apt and time for Indian judiciary today, since very often it is rightly criticized for the overreach or and encroachment on the domain of the other two organs. Now, the judicial activism must not become very judicial adventurism. The bench warned the courts for education must be done within certain system of that has been historically validated. Restraints are there, and conscious minimization of judges' preferences should be there in the decision making. Then the courts must not embrace any kind of the administrative authorities, and they must realize that the administrative authorities have certain expertise in their field of administration while the court does not have. So basically they're trying to say that, as we all know, basically the legislative executive have certain expertise and they're expert in certain fields and where they can make decision making, but the judges don't have any expertise in such field. So basically then how can they make laws, or how can they implement laws that in which in which they don't have their own expertise also. So that is what they're trying to question. And the bench also said that the justification that has been often given for the judicial encroachment on the domain of executive or the legislators, that the other two organs are not doing basically their jobs properly. And even assuming this is so, that the same allegation can be made against the judiciary too, because their cases are pending in the court for the half of the century. So basically the argument over here is that the judiciary is basically giving the judgments on executive or the legislature, that they're not able to do their jobs properly, so that is why they are intervening. But the same argument could be made for the courts also, because most of the cases, as we can see, is pended in the Indian judiciary, and and therefore the same allegation could be made for them also. Now if we look at the legislature or the executive wasn't performing properly or something like that, then it is for the people to basically correct the defects by exercising their franchise properly in the next election. So basically what they're trying to say over here, that कि अगर legislation और executive अपना काम ढंग से नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो ये चीज लोगों पे छोड़नी चाहिए कि कौन काम ढंग से कर रहा है कौन नहीं कर रहा, तो वो नेक्स्ट टाइम जिसको वोट फिर नेक्स्ट टाइम वो उस पार्टी को वोट नहीं देंगे जो पिछले बार काम नहीं कर रहा था. और जो voting for the candidates would also fulfill their expectations or by other lawful method like peaceful demonstration. तो बेसिकली वो बोल रहे हैं कि अगर हम वोट किसी और कैंडिडेट को करेंगे तो उन्हें लगे कि उसके एस्पिरेशंस भी फुलफिल हो जाएगी या जो उसने एक्सपेक्ट करा है. और जो लॉफुल मेथड से, जैसे अगर हमें प्रोटेस्ट करना है या फिर पीसफुल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशंस वगैरह हम कर सकते हैं लेजिस्लेचर और एग्जीक्यूटिव के खिलाफ. उसके बाद हम आते हैं, द रेमेडी इज नॉट इन द जुडिशरी बाय टेकिंग basically the remedy over here is not for the judiciary by taking over the legislative or executive for the function, because it does not only violate the delicate balance that has been enshrined in the constitution, but also because the judiciary has neither the expertise nor the resources to perform these functions. तो बेसिकली यहाँ पे हम इन लाइंस का कहने का ये मतलब है कि जो रेमेडी जो प्रोवाइड करे जुडिशरी को, कि वो बेसिकली जो रेमेडी जुडिशरी प्रोवाइड कर रही है कि वो लेजिस्लेटिव और एग्जीक्यूटिव के फंक्शंस लेके. तो बेसिकली इससे क्या हो रहा है कि जो डेलिकेट बैलेंस बनाया था जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, जो लेजिस्लेचर और जुडिशरी को दिया है, वो भी अनबैलेंस हो रहा है, उससे बैलेंस नहीं हो रहा है. उसके बाद हम देखते हैं कि जुडिशरी को हम ये भी अपने पिछले वाले पॉइंट में बात करें कि जुडिशरी की खुद किसी में एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है और उसके पास इतने रिसोर्सेज नहीं है कि वो जो बेसिकली लॉ मेकिंग है जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में प्रैक्टिस हो रहे हैं कि वो प्रैक्टिस कर सके. और एक बेंच ने ये भी कहा था कि द जुडिशियल रिस्ट्रेन इज कंसिस्ट with or the complementary to the balance of power between the three independent branches of the state. It accomplishes this in two ways. First is that judicial restraint is not only recognizes the equality of the other two branches with the judiciary, but it also tries to foster the equality by minimizing the interbranch franchise by interbranch interference by the judiciary. The second is that the judicial restraint that tend to protect the independence of the judiciary when the courts encroach on the legislative or administrative in the fields that are inevitable. Voters, legislators or other elected officials will conclude that the activities of judges should be closely monitored. So basically इस लाइन का ये मतलब है कि पहली तो चीज़ उन्होंने बात करी है कि बेसिकली जो जुडिशियल रिस्ट्रेन है वो उसे रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करना चाहिए, बल्कि वो इक्वालिटी लाना चाहिए जो टू ब्रांचेस हैं जुडिशरी के साथ है. और इक्वालिटी कैसे आएंगे कि मिनिमाइज करेंगे जितना इंटर ब्रांच वो फ्रेंचाइज के जो इंटर ब्रांच इंटरफेरेंस है जुडिशरी का. सेकेंड दैट कि जुडिशरी का जुडिशियल रिस्ट्रेन इसलिए है कि ये प्रोटेक्ट करता है, इंडिपेंडेंस प्रोटेक्ट करता है जो जुडिशरी की है. और जो वोटर्स है बेसिकली वो भी लेजिस्लेट कर सकते हैं, या वो भी डायरेक्ट उनके पास आ सकते हैं, लेजिस्लेटर और एग्जीक्यूटिव के पास, कि आप ये परफॉर्म नहीं कर रहे। तो बेसिकली जो काम होता है जजेस का, वो यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा क्लोजली हमें मॉनिटर करना है। तो बस यही हमने बात की, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऑब्जर्वेशन दी थी, जो उन्हें डिलीवरी करी थी एक जजमेंट की 2007 में, कि the Supreme Court of India called for a judicial restraint and asked the courts not to take over the function of legislature or the executive by saying that there is a broad, because he said that there is a broad separation of powers under the constitution, and each organ of the state must respect each other's domain and should not interfere in each other's domain. So therefore this bench made all these observations that has been clearly discussed in the video. So if you really like my video, then you can like, subscribe and share. So thank you so much.